everybody. How are we all doing? How are we all doing today? Well, this is being a buggy bitch, so fuck you. You can go back to the floor. Anyway. More voice? Alright. Wait, more voice? Well. Ah. Ah. Is that better? Hey, Moonling. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Yes. That was a fucking perfect Arnold impression. I fucking know. But hello. As it says by the title, this is going to be a reading stream, and as some of you already know, um, yeah. Nobody has died. No. Seems like that's not fucking working then. Alright. I'll go see what the fuck is wrong with Stream Elements for it to not work. Oh, it might be because I'm fucking logged out. That might actually. Yes. We all love a good little candle. The candle is mainly just, you know, so people can fucking look at something while I'm reading. Right now I'm just trying to see that everything is alive and well. There we go. Dramatic reading. No, I'm just going to be reading some short stories, hence the rain sounds in the back. Which, by the way, if y'all want, I can turn up. Okay, let's try this now. Well, fucking suck a dick then, Stream Elements, innit? Ah, who cares? We can just fucking get going then, eh? Yeah, it's not gonna work, Melina. Just forget about it. It will not work today, so let it not work today. Bloop. Wow, fuck off, all of you. Just fucking spamming the one thing. Alright, alright. I see how it is. I see how it is. Oh. Fucking hell. Yeah, you should really get that checked out. Hey, Robbie. Hello, people. Hello, people. Okay, it's time to stop with that fucking funeral spam. It's not going to work. Regretfully, it's not going to work. But yes, okay, Melina, seriously, fucking quit it. Yes, the fact you got run over should be checked out. And the fact that you fucking injured, dumbass. Yeah, exactly. Exactly what Robbie said. Yeah. Alright, anyway, I think it's about time I begin. So, this first story is called Wounds, and it is by Ethan Schmidt. I have endured decades through storm and wind. I have seen many cycles of the moon and the changing of seasons. I have witnessed hundreds of suns rise and set. Despite these many years, I have learned little, and I know little. I know nothing of what came before me, and I will never know anything of what is to come after. What I do know is limited to what is around me. I see the birds, I feel the wind, I know the warmth of the sun and the different kinds of rain. I know nature. In fact, I believe myself to be nature. Though nature seems to be something men despise, people have torn me, riven my skin, and vandalized my body. I've been hurt and broken by blade and by cord. Scorn has cast onto me, because I seem to be the most apt target. I am cut simply for the sake of others' joy, or because of their anger. This darkness and hatred in the world is something of which I want no part. Through my years, I have picked up my wounds, which have, in their time, healed. Scars remain in these wounds. I am not the same as I was before, nor will I ever be again. A knot here, a gash there. My limbs feel heavy from the effort of surviving. The world has done nothing but expand my list of wounds. I'm grizzled and gnarled from life's axes and knives. I try my best to breathe. No, I do like to try breasts, but I try my best and breathe life into air for everyone around me. But no one recognizes my efforts. My jokes never land. My friends never stay. And my existence goes vastly underappreciated. Not one person had told me otherwise. Not one, that is, until she came. I sat atop the hill. I've done marvelous works, claiming as my own and expecting no one. Tears streaked her face. I had never seen another person look so broken. I could see in her eyes that from her wounds she would also never fully recover. Without a word, she sat beside me atop my home. She leaned against me with a fragile tenderness that I hadn't thought people to be capable of. I wanted to say something, or do something, but I did not. I let herself run dry of tears without any utterance or acknowledgement. It seemed as if hours had passed. The sun had stumbled and was falling again. She spoke out to me then. I know you probably don't care about me. I'm hurting, and I hope you don't mind me bothering you, but I must tell someone. You're all I've got now. I've been thrown away by everyone who means anything to me. I don't know where to go or what to do. I feel sometimes I've lost my mind. There's no doubt, now, I'm talking to you. I've been hurting for a long time. I wonder when it was that I went beyond hope. Beyond help. She rolled up her sleeve. I saw a tapestry woven upon her skin. Rough edges of coalesced reds and pinks and beautiful painting there. And I awed at her scars, the wounds of her past. She drew a blade and I prepared myself for the sting, the bite of its steel in my flesh. It didn't come. Instead, she added to her tapestry, painting a long, thin line in red. I watched in fascination as her skin was opened before my eyes. Her paint flowed freely, slowly. Her expression was pain, but I don't believe it was from her new wound. Calmly, she pulled the blade away and deliberately painted another, smaller line, crossing the first. Soon, the whole tapestry had been covered in red. Seemingly satisfied with her work, she placed the knife gingerly on the dirt and rolled it back, her newly stained sleeve. Hugging the wounded arm firmly against her chest, she closed her eyes and leaned her head against mine. She exhaled deeply and spoke again. I feel numb sometimes. I get the feeling that feeling doesn't really exist. It's not so much a calm, just empty. Whenever I do that, she gestured to her arm. The numbness kind of disappears for a while until I have to slash it away again. It's never better for too long, and I keep having to do it more often recently. She was quiet for a long moment, watching the sun sink slowly behind the horizon. Just as the last remnants of light were beginning to fade away, she spoke once more. I never got along well with anyone in school. At least, I always told myself I didn't. Sure, I played games all the same as the other kids. I laughed and colored in markers and made paper chains. But I always had a nagging feeling that all my friends were made up. I always felt like my friendships were fake, and they were playing a trick on me. Or they did everything because they felt bad for me. I never had a best friend. I never made love. There are probably so many things in life that I've missed. Maybe those things would have made me happy. Maybe they wouldn't have. I've convinced myself that the world has been cruel to me, regardless of whether or not it actually has been. My scars are a testament to that. Thank you for listening. I'm glad I can lean on someone so solid right now. It really does mean a lot. The sun had completely disappeared now, though only recently. The moon shone too brightly for the stars to be seen, but I knew they were there, just hiding. I wish I could have shown her the stars. She picked up the gleaming blade again from where it had rested then, and, not bothering to move her sleeve, gouged at the tapestry beneath. She let a soft sound out through her lips as the knife dug into her flesh, dragged the edge purposefully across her arm, much more deeply this time. The thick red paint welled up from behind her brush, more and more until she dropped it. I sat and watched as she died. She bled till she couldn't anymore. Her body went very still, and her head rested against me. Her blood poured in the dirt and the grass, seeping down until I could taste it in my roots. It was vile. I wanted to run, to flee from her and to never come back. But I couldn't. My wounds were now scars, a tapestry on my trunk and limbs. But they hadn't killed me. She had wanted to heal her wounds, these rifts in her life and in her flesh. But the scars were too painful of reminders. She couldn't let go of the past. She couldn't heal herself. I am now destined to live out my remaining, perhaps centuries with this memory. I will remain unmoving beyond what the winds demand. It is now my burden to bear. I hope that wherever it is she has gone, that she is happier now. That much I would consider to be fair. And that was Wounds by Ethan Schmidt. Oh, thank you for coming, Dennis, and you're not the only one, Kane. You are definitely not the only one. And to a very special reader in the background, I know you're lurking there, listening. Enjoy. The next story is called Buried in Saipan by Alex Sultan. And just a quick trigger warning before anyone listens to me tell this story. This story contains themes and or mentions of physical violence, gore and abuse, so if you are of light heart and light mind, I suggest you keep moving. There are still rusted bayonets to be found in the dirt, alongside broken firearms, canteens, and bullet-struck helmets, at times still attached to skeletons. The deep-sea team would occasionally find a corroded tank or the remains of a submarine acting as an aquarium. Fighter planes would turn up far off in the mountains, a surprise to the climbers. Rare was it that Hishao found letters buried in Saipan. He dropped his shovel and knelt, the archaeology team at work behind him. Industrial lights illuminated the tunnel with a silver glow, brushing up the dirt from his find. Hishao picked up a time-worn book with a withered cover. A loose page stuck out from the side. "I'm going to surrender at dawn," the sentence read. "I got something." Hishao trailed off. Curiosity once again bested him. With careful fingers, he opened the book and read the first page. June 2nd, 1944. The Americans can have this island. For all I care. I'm tired. We're spending the day digging trenches near the beach. The hot sun beams down on us. And we have little water and rice to ration. If we don't work hard enough, we get shouted at. One word out of place and we're beaten. If there is any silver lining, it is the sun's reflection on the clear waters. The sound of calm waves on the shore, even as bugs swarm me. I cherish the view. It is breathtaking. My candlelight fades and this bedroll does little to cushion the dirt. I hope the centipedes stay away from me. Hishao turned to the next page. His crew continued to work behind him. A wheelbarrow rolling by with crushed rock. June 8th, 1944. Mashiro's playing cards were found. An officer brought him outside and he came back bloodied. I fear this journal will be found as well, yet my thoughts are loud, and the nights quiet. Nothing I write in a letter home would make it through the censors. June 11th, 1944. I've never been an accurate shot. The bruises from the cane are still sore. The officer threatened to keep rations from all of us unless I improve my aim in practice. Another told us we will get medics when we see them. No. Americans would risk one life to save another. I'm going to falter when the time comes. June 13th, 1944. Despite being surrounded by hundreds of my brethren, it is very lonely. Not all see the beauty of life as I do. Hishao turned the page, the handwriting on the next grew shaky as if written in a hurry. June 15th, 1944. It is a habit to number the year. Even when I have doubts I'll make it to the next one. I'm not going to sleep tonight. Warships bombard the shores. Planes drone overhead, the bombs whistle, the grounds tremble. Soon it will be me on the front lines. I fear I don't want. I'm I'm ready when the time comes. June 17th, 1944. One of the Americans is in our captivity. He was shot in the gut. I, dragged him into a dugout and bandaged him. The officers won't question him come morning. With what little English I know, I found time to speak with him. His voice shook as we talked. He hung on to threads of life. I told Alan I grew up in a small town in Osaka, while he spoke of Ohio, a sprawling city with tall apartments. He would have been sent to Germany, but along with his friends, but drew the short end of the stick. He laughed at his joke, and I laughed too. Alan is asleep now. His breathing fades. I don't think he'll wake up. I'm glad I could see him smile. June 18th, 1944. The last thing Alan did hand me was a letter, asking me to deliver it to his mother in any way I could. When I read it over, I could only realize how similar it was to mine. It made me question, what am I fighting for? Michelle exhaled, then pushed the loose page back into place. June 22nd, 1944. I'm going to surrender at dawn. I will fake stomach problems and run off. The white cloth I carry will slate my peace to the Americans. I am terrified. The last man to mention the word surrender was beaten until he couldn't stand, left as an example to us, but I cannot take the trepidation of battle any longer. I sit alone with my thoughts until the sun rises. Turning one too far, Hisham stared at a blank page. The entries had stopped. He turned back to the final one, dated more than 1 week after the last. 3 days before America claimed their victory. July 6th, 1944. My right eye is still blackened. I can no longer see with it. The officer who beat me is now leading a reckless charge against the Americans. The final stand for control of the island. I, with a few others, am left behind to burn our documents in the cave. I will not. Among the documents are letters, dozens, addressed to families and loved ones that were never sent, words never spoken. Instead, I shall bury them alongside this journal and hope for it to one day be found. The order then is to take our own lives. Grenades have been left for us, and we will pull the pin and hold them to our chest. It will be quick and painless. I can only hope that in the afterlife I am set apart from those who took joy in this conflict. Until my words are read, Koji. Hisham sighed. He closed the book, then reached for a bag to seal it in. I found something, he called. His co-workers stepped forward. Hisham handed one the sealed bag, then reached in front with both hands. He swept back the dirt and promptly hitting the old leather of a satchel. Cameras clicked around him, and another archaeologist dropped to help. They pulled the satchel from the ground, and the string wrapped around it came loose. Out rained a handful of letters, buried inside pan. that was buried in Saipan by Alex Sultan. This one is called 28 Letters by the same author, Alex Sultan. A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor man perfected without trials. Sejong swept his books off the shelf. Rain pelted the world outside. The king opened one of his many works, the spine of it splitting under his force, and read off a page. Nyongsa Yishol, Methods of Cultivation in Agriculture. A guidebook to farming in Korea's geography. Words that could keep his people from famine. He threw it into the rain. It splashed against the mud-coated field, water distorting the ink. A second book followed, sliding against the ground into a puddle, a third, and a fourth. They piled in the courtyard. Works he had commissioned to better Korea's people, to educate the illiterate. Worthless. What good is knowledge that cannot be read? Music echoed inside the palace, string instruments, a wavering bamboo flute, and the quick beat of a drum. Accompaniment to the heavy rain. On his way to his chambers, Sejong passed a woman humming along. She sat on the wooden floor with a script out front and in front of her, writing out poetry and stopping to bow. The king raised a hand in dismissal. The woman's poems would do nothing for their culture, written in Chinese characters, a waste of paper. None other than the privileged could read it. The words have no meaning for the common people. He stepped into his chambers. Lamps glowed with dim flames, and rain tapped against the roof. His wife stood, her smile fading at the sight of the king, so tired. She hurried over and guided him to sit. Her dress, red and gold, flowed behind her. What worries you, my husband? Sejong exhaled. He considered himself a scholar, yet his kingdom could not read or write. There are voices I will never hear, he said. Farmers who don't have wealth or status to learn to read. Children who cannot grow into scholars. Workers who cannot write their concerns. My people lack the gift of education. And I lack the means to educate them. ¿Cómo estás, Valdragas? Have fun. The queen took his hand, a soft, calming touch. And what shall you do? She asked. He ran his fingers through his beard. Sejong took time to think, then turned his head to the queen. My people need a new system of writing, and I will craft one for them. A script a wise man can acquaint himself before the morning is over, and a fool can learn in the space of 10 days. At dawn, Sejong sat alone in a common room. Sunlight shone through the open windows, ethereal motes of dust dancing in the light. Scrolls, inks, and books surrounded him. Panels of artwork, birds, flowers, enveloped the room. Sejong spent the morning of reading phonetics of alphabets, with 50 letters, others with 70. Too many relied on complex lettering. He would keep it simple for the busiest of men. Around midday, he painted hundreds of symbols. He started with one stroke of the brush, 2 strokes, 3 strokes, never going above 4. He hung the papers upon the walls, blocking the sunlight. He crossed out any he deemed too complicated. Servants left food outside the door as he worked. By dusk, he walked through the courtyard, stars glistening above. Sejong spoke words to himself. He singled out their noises, pointed out their vowels. Oak, oath, oasis. Yan, yarn, yang. Water, wasp, wary. He pressed his fingers into his mouth, feeling his teeth and tongue move at the pronunciations. His lips separated for a shush noise, but closed for a p. Some required more air, others less. The days passed, and a concerned advisor sought him out. The dynasty will not agree with your choice, the advisor said. Knowing Chinese is what puts them above the common man. Your choice to create this script will cause an uproar, your majesty. It could divide our kingdom. Let it be so, Sejong said, looking up from his script, as I will no longer be cut from my people. Understand, it is not knowledge that ruins the world. It falls to those pointing fingers for selfish gain. Dozens of sheets lined the walls. Ink stained his hands. Crumpled up papers littered the room. Drafts he deemed failures too complex. His wife told the council members he had fallen ill and he needed time to recover as he crafted his script. Sejong spoke till his throat grew sore, attaching noises like ch, ta to symbols while discarding others entirely. He kept his work common, crude, strong and tough, easy and efficient. He had to write letters that would last 1,000 years. The vowels remained as lines and dots. A silent O shape came before each to signify an open mouth. Consonants followed suit with an N sound signifying the tongue touching the back of one's teeth. A K noise showed a raised tongue blocking the air from one's throat. Lingual, dental, molar, and glottal sounds made up a script of 28 letters, 17 consonants, 11 vowels, blocked together for organization, compared to the thousands needed for Chinese. He wrote short sentences from top to bottom. Candles melted down beside him, incense burned, releasing the scent of sandalwood throughout his chambers. Sejong sat cross-legged on the floor. Weeks' worth of work came down to reading aloud. The man persevered. The language flowed off his tongue like water. He presented his script to the council at first light. 2 charts, one for consonants, the other for vowels. Each letter with its phonetic equal written next to it. Easy to follow, stroke orders. He sat upon his throne, the royals whispering before him. Chinese characters, he said, his voice echoing in the throne room, are incapable of capturing our unique meanings. Many of our common people have no way to express their thoughts or their feelings. Out of my sympathy for their difficulties, I've created a set of 28 letters. They are very easy to learn, and it is my hope that they improve the quality of life for all people. Not a soul agreed. They shouted their concerns. The Chinese would perceive it as a threat. It would be the end of Confucianism. Korea's social hierarchy would fall. The scripts would have to be burnt down to ashes to prevent an uprising. The dynasty erased to 28 letters and deemed them a worthless use of time. Yet, for the good of his people, Sejong persevered. He taught the language to any who wanted to learn. In turn, they carried it throughout the land. Women found their voices teaching children the simplicity of the symbols. Men stood straight, proud to have a language of their own. Monks wrote prayers in the sand. Merchants kept records of their stock. Artists could sign their names. The letters birthed poets, playwrights, and philosophers. Astronomers learned to write the names of constellations. Winemakers created labels. Apothecaries devised written names for their medicines. Sejong ordered his books to be rewritten. The dynasty had failed to suppress the flow of knowledge. Korea's illiteracy ceased to exist as the letters blossomed within the country. The script billowed in use after Sejong's death. 4 years later, as the great king ushered his people into a golden age of culture and literature, a land where every soul could read and write, where all could learn the teachings of the wise. And that was 28 Letters by Alex Sultan. I'm going to do one more story, also by Alex Sultan, because he has a very beautiful way of writing, and I enjoy reading it as well as speaking it. And this final one is called 9 Marines by Alex Sultan, and it contains a few heavy topics such as violence and abuse, so be advised. None of the Marines could sleep at night. If they caught any shut-eye, it wouldn't be more than an hour at a time. The guards would poke them with sharpened bamboo sticks. There'd be blood on the straw mats come morning, or they would wake them up to taunt them, kicking and spitting and throwing insults in a language the Marines could not understand. They yelled about how Japan would soon win the war, and America would fail. Soji walked past another guard on his way to the barracks. It would be his turn to watch over the 9 prisoners. Sunlight broke through the barred windows. Floorboards creaked under his boots. He stepped to the nearest cell, less than a cell, more like a cage, and kneeled. The Marine lying within, bruised, beaten, and dropping weight faster than anyone he'd ever seen, lay curled up in the corner. Bugs crawled over the straw mat he slept on. Soji reached through the wooden bars with a canteen in hand. "Here is water. You can drink," he said. The Marine turned, his eyes opened sluggishly, and without hesitation he took the canteen, tipped the container to his cracked lips, and drank slowly, savoring every sip. More than the cup a day they were allowed. "You speak English?" he mumbled as he handed the canteen back. "I study," Shoji said, each word heavy with his accent, "in church school." He smiled. My name is Soji. I am friend. Tomodachi. Friend. He reached into his pocket for a piece of hard candy and handed it to Marines. Soji left the barracks and refilled his canteen at the well, then returned to offer water to the next American soldier. This one suffered from a bad cough. The next one asked if it was a trick, and the fourth was younger than the others. Fifth, a bit of Japanese himself, so on and so forth. On the next day, Shoji brought along a piece of paper. He sat next to a marine and drew a turtle. Below it, he wrote Game. The marine looked at him and wrote turtle. Shoji then drew a baseball bat, a car and a book from one psalm to the next. They taught each other their language. Shoji nodded as they pronounced the words in Japanese. They would never smile, but showing kindness was the best he could do to improve their living conditions. As the Marines lay in their cells one morning, a mob formed outside. A submarine crew, demoralized from the loss of Saipan, rushed onto the island. Soji watched at least 80 men picking up rocks and sticks and an officer brandishing his sword. One man dragged a struggling marine outside and they beat him, taking turns kicking his ribs until he could no longer breathe. The second marine was beaten to his knees and a sword pointed at his head. Sunlight reflected off the steel. The officer raised his arms high, cried out and swung. The blade got stuck halfway into the marine's neck. Banzai! The crew cheered. He let out a dying moan, and another swing left his head rolling across the dirt. A trail of blood followed. Banzai! Came another shout. Shoji kept his eyes down. The submarine crew set off in high spirits. The day became night, dawn becoming dusk. Moonlight broke through the trees overhead. The crickets chirped in the forest, and the marine in the barracks called for a doctor over and over. Shoji sat at the camp officer's desk to complain about the execution. It's what they should expect, the officer said. They are enemies of Japan, are they not? Doctor, the marine called further off. I need a doctor, please. Shoji cleared his throat. These men, he started. Would you not expect kindness had it been you who laid down your arms? They are suffering in our nation's care. These men have surrendered. Their families would be ashamed of them. Do you know why we'll win this war? He didn't give Shoji a chance to reply. It's because of the Americans. They are weak compared to us. They let their fears and emotions control them. Doctor, please, the Marine continued, loud enough for everyone in the camp to hear. I need a doctor. I'm begging you. Please. The officer sighed and then picked up a newspaper. Go on, shut that prisoner up, he said. Such a bothersome noise. His eyes darted to a wooden club laid out on the desk. I want to hear him cry out before he goes quiet. Soji took the club and walked off into the barracks. The Marines cowered back at the sound of his footsteps. He approached the furthest cell and unlocked it. "Out," Soji said. James, the Marine, crawled out from the wooden cage, looking up at Soji with weak, sleepless eyes. Soji knelt beside him. "I'm going to hit the ground," he whispered, "and you cry, okay?" James nodded and moved out of harm's way. Shoji raised his arm and the club came down against the floorboards. Chips of wood flew into the air. Shoji repeated the action again and again. Minutes later, he returned with the only extra blanket he could find. He handed it to James through the bars of the cell. His breathing was mere rasps in the silence. "We're all flight crew," he said. Shoji sat across him to listen. "The 9 of us. Yo-Zero shot us down. We parachuted. We were supposed to be the lucky ones, surviving. Now I can't say I'm sure." James forced a smile, emotionless. "Why is it we're treated like this?" James asked. "The submarine men were angered. They lost battle." "No," James said, shaking his head. "No, your people. We're treated like animals, sitting in this cage, being laughed at and poked with sticks. There's no Red Cross to sign up with. I'm not allowed to write home. My belongings were tossed in the water when I got here. My wallet with my only picture of my fiancée. It's gone. Why? My people." Shoji raised a hand to wipe a tear from his eye. "Are very confused. They do not know how the world is. We think we are better than others. But we never talk to others. We've learned only to hate. And it is beaten into us until we want to take it out on them." Soji held his eyes shut, stopping the flow of tears. "But not all bad. You're not," James said. "Your kindness means everything to me here, all of us." Shoji reached forward and took the Marine's hand. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "that the others were not the same." At sunrise, his call for transfer came through. Rumor had it a guard had been given extra rations to the prisoners, and the camp officer narrowed it down to Shoji. It would be the day before he left for Tokyo, and then the front lines of Guam, the next island the Americans advanced on. He returned to the barracks for his last shift. Only 6 Marines remained. Another had passed away overnight. Malnourished and ridden with disease, the doctors operating on Japanese troops had laughed at Shoji's request of treating. He approached the first cage with 6 pieces of paper. Shoji knelt down and then sat. He passed one sheet through the bars and handed the Marine a pen. "I leave tomorrow," Shoji said. "You write letter home now, and I deliver it at post office. I make sure it gets to America. I cannot guarantee your safety here." "They're going to kill us before the war's over, aren't they?" Shoji nodded and the Marine sighed, then clicked the pen. He wrote fast. Shoji took the letter and moved on to the next. They thanked them. some with tears as they handed back the pieces of paper, mailing addresses at the top, and rushed, shaky handwriting through the pages. Standing outside, out of sight, Shoji flipped through them. To my brother, one read, Mom, Dad, I'm sorry, read another. My darling fiancé, I will not be returning home. Mother, this will be the last you hear of me. To my 2 sons. He froze as he passed over the last. Shoji, they read. You give me hope of a better Japan. The sun set on the horizon, a slow descent, a tranquil reflection on the calm waters ahead. A tear left his eye. The Marines would be killed. The camp burnt down. Do not leave any trace for the Allies, yet. With the letters, perhaps their souls would rest easy. And this was the last story of tonight, called 9 Marines by Alex Salton. I would like to thank each and every one of you that came along here today to read with me. And I would also like to thank each and every one of you for listening. It has been a great stream. And now we will go out and rate somebody. And just enjoy it. You know what, I'm feeling a bit nostalgic. I'm gonna take you all to a friend of mine called Soaps. Soaps is a very, very amazing person. I absolutely love them and their streams, and they have great content. And they're also very chill, just like the stream, yeah. So it's going to be a perfect continuation of the vibes. Right now they're playing some SnowRunner, but I think we will all enjoy Soaps and his content. So thank you all for coming, and till next time.